Hello, everyone. My name is Will Randall, and I'm with the IAAPA North America Education Team. Thanks for attending today's webinar. Before we begin, let me just take a few minutes to explain today's format. During the broadcast, attendees will be able to view and listen to the presentation, but their microphones and videos will be off. If you're interested in closed captioning, you may enable that along with certain translations by clicking the button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Attendees can submit questions and are encouraged to submit questions throughout the presentation by clicking the Q&A button located at the bottom of the Zoom window. There will be a dedicated Q&A session at the presentation in which our panelists will work to answer as many questions as they can. I would like to reiterate to utilize that Q&A button instead of the chat for all of your questions so we can have an organized cache of those ready to go by the end of the session. We are recording today's broadcast, and a link to the recording will be available to IAAPA members in the webinar archive, which you can find at IAAPA.org in about 5 to 7 business days. A link to that page will be included in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow afternoon. At the conclusion of today's presentation, a survey will populate to gather feedback from our attendees. We appreciate all who take the time to fill this out and give us valuable insight for future IAAPA programming. Lastly, attendees of today's live broadcast are eligible to earn 1 CEU toward IAAPA recertification. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Massivit and Pink Sparrow to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, Will, and thanks everybody for attending today. So we're going to show you how to create some amazing themed experiences, retail theater environments, and even props and experiential displays for amusement parks capable of being printed on site. So we'll take you through that in about the next 45 minutes. So this is just as a publicly traded company. This is our safe harbor statement. We don't expect you to read this today, of course, so we'll move right along. So my name is Randy Van Buren. I'm the head of sales for North America for Massivit. With me are colleagues from Pink Sparrow as well, our trusted partner and customer. And Corey and Yelmer, I'll allow you just to, if you would, just introduce yourself briefly for us.
Hi, Corey Smith. I'm the new business director at Pink Sparrow. I work out of our New York shop, but work across both our New York and Los Angeles locations.
Hello, my name is Yelmer Steinhars. I'm the machine production manager at Pink Sparrow East. I run the CNC and 3D printing department on the East Coast with alongside Corey.
Thank you, Corey and Yelmer. And so today we'll cover the typical challenges that custom fabrication for theming and retail experience. And since we'll be focused on 3D printing, we'll review traditional technology for 3D printing versus gel dispensing printing, or GDP. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll provide a technology overview to help you understand what GDP is and how it works. And then next we'll review a wide range of materials suitable for theming and entertainment. And then we'll turn it over to our friends at Pink Sparrow so they can guide you through a day in the life, leveraging 3D printing technologies to fabricate amazing theming and attraction production pieces using a variety of case studies. And finally, our panel will participate in a Q&A session that you'll have the opportunity to raise your curiosity and get your questions answered as well. So, custom fabricators are really masters of all trades and employ many different technologies, tools, fabrication. Often it's challenging. Today we'll be addressing how large format 3D printing, and specifically gel 3D printing, solves some of the challenges of fabricating for themed attractions and retail theater environments. What are the applications and use cases achievable with this technology? And really how it's utilized by custom fabricators in the field. We'll be exploring how to create large and unique themed experiences, point of purchase displays, museum displays, and even event installations and film props, along with life-size characters, selfie points, even custom interiors. In addition, you'll learn which type of printing materials are available for gel-based 3D printing and what the considerations are for really friendly 3D printing. So before we jump in too deep, traditionally, when you think about 3D printers, they've been used to create small projects and small objects and have evolved into a method for producing mock-ups and even prototypes that are small. And while there's certainly advancements that have been achieved in 3D technologies, there's three main barriers that have remained: speed, size, and really unique materials. And as 3D printing expands beyond simple mock-ups, it's really critical to address the demands that fabricators are challenged with today. Massivit was founded to enable fabricators and manufacturers to achieve incredibly large builds at record speeds, and combined with a unique set of materials to address the challenges that fabricators experience today. Next. So, in order to break the barriers that I mentioned, a new radical disruptive technology was invented, gel dispensing, DP for short. Let's take you through just a quick overview of how the innovative technology actually works. So, in order to print using gel-based materials, and this unique process utilizes a gel dispenser screw to push a UV-cured photopolymeric gel through a print dispenser and a nozzle. The gel's dispensed at extremely high speed and is instantly cured using a UV ring that's mounted to the dispenser. By instantly curing them, the printer can then produce extremely large prints really, really fast, up to 14 inches per hour. And in some cases, even a 6-foot tall character can be printed in about 7 hours. Okay. So as you can see from the slide on the screen, the speed of printing with Massivit is extremely fast, up to 14 inches per hour, as we mentioned. With traditional 3D printing, parts this size would take days, if not weeks, to print. Couple that with a 4 by 5 by 6 feet high build envelope, and you can create some really amazing, unique, large visual pieces. And if your piece is even larger than the print bed, not to worry, because the printed parts can actually be bonded together using our diamond gel, the raw material, as the glue, so to speak, and then instantly cured with a handheld UV flashlight. And you'll learn more about this a little bit later. So for now, let's go ahead and take a look at the GDP in action. So we should be at sustainability shortly. Perfect. So by printing only what you need and without any infill for the most part, and without extra material on the outside of the model, for instance, like if you were machining foam blocks, and the material waste that you see significantly reduces the amount of material consumption and reduces the energy consumption. They're minimized to a great degree. And of course, by printing the pieces in-house instead of using an outside source, the carbon footprint can be reduced by eliminating the transportation requirements, of course. Okay. So we've talked about briefly the speed and the size. You've seen it in the video, but not really the variety of materials. So on the third pillar that we addressed early on, and the barriers that were challenging for 3D printing in general, the Massivit printer leverages a number of unique diamond gel materials to support a wide range of requirements for theming, visual communications, and attractions and entertainment. And on the screen that you see, all the way down from our cost-effective workhorse material, Diamond Gel 90, which is a gray, opaque material, all the way up to sort of the middle of the road with our clear, transparent Diamond Gel 300, and all the way at the other end with our Diamond Gel 400, an enhanced impact and better HDT, more robust material available. And so depending on the application that you're looking for, each of these materials can be suitable using the Massivit technologies. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Corey and team.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Appreciate it. Well, welcome everyone. As Randy kind of alluded to, immense amount of capabilities that having the Massivit 3D printer has opened up for us. We have a printer across both our New York and Los Angeles shops. Overall, we occupy around 65,000 square feet. We have a shop in southern Los Angeles, so Compton in the warehouse district. It's about 38,000 square feet. And then we have a shop in New York, specifically Greenpoint, Brooklyn. We're at about 28,000 square feet. So we've been around for going on 13 years. And first couple of slides just kind of gives you the gamut of a lot of the categories that we work within. So it's pretty broad, starting with architectural and permanent fixtures through to festival activations. That is actually under just a white tent at Coachella. Automation and creative tech. So that example, 24-foot tall arm that can have some robotic gestures programmed into it. Trade show exhibits across multitude of categories. This one specifically in the beauty category. Retail and pop-ups. We recently helped Gymshark enter the North American market with a few pop-ups in New York City and other markets. Experiential activations. That's kind of where we started many years ago. So it's kind of like our tried and true bread and butter over the years. Murals and art installations. This specific one is at the Rockaway Hotel, often working with artists when they get commissioned to take their work to significant scale. Vehicles and mobile tours, whether it's building and executing or simply executing. And then obviously why we're all here, 3D printing, as you can see with the recreation of the Vecna character from the Stranger Things store in Las Vegas. It's a photo of the Massivit printer that Yelmer is standing in front of. This is in our Brooklyn shop. Very important for us to have created a very nice, clean environment for that to work in. So we're going to take you through several case studies. First one will be our most detailed case study, kind of going through the entire life cycle of a project. In this instance, one where we were just basically handed over the reference image as you were shown. So therefore, there was a lot of extensive file prep required. So Yelmer will take you through all of the very detailed steps of that process, as he obviously is very integrated within that. This project, so Marc Jacobs ultimately was the brand, fashion brand here in New York. Dover Street Market was the end delivery location. It's kind of like high-end boutique across multiple fashion brands, most of them independent, some of them larger brands. Locations in Los Angeles and New York in North America, and then globally, London, Milan, Tokyo, etc. So in this instance, we created two of them, one in New York and one in Los Angeles. We do have the machines in each shop. So as we're going through this, especially in the file prep, the exact recreation of it basically was mirrored across both of our shops due to having the same machine. So I'll hand it over to Yelmer and he can dive right into this case study.
Great. Thank you, Corey. So for this project, we chose to use our Massivit 3D printer instead of, for example, hand sculpting or CNC machining, and that gave us several advantages. It allowed us to produce precise one-to-one recreation of the client's highly specific design ask. We were also able to schedule significant parts of the production process to run unattended overnight, for example. And that was critical in that we were able to move quickly to hand off the raw prints to the Scenic team. We also, with the Massivit, we reduced the carbon footprint, material waste, and health concerns dramatically. We were also able to produce identical sculptures with our machines that Corey mentioned on both the East and the West coasts. So after we considered how we wanted to produce it using the Massivit, our next step was to determine how to generate the 3D model. We determined pretty quickly that 3D scanning would be the most effective method to get the client approval that we needed for this. So we sourced a selection of hand models and gave the client several options, which we presented to them for their team to review and choose. So after Marc Jacobs' team selected their preferred lookalike Marc Jacobs hand model, we partnered with a vendor to create a high-resolution 3D scan. Our vendor used the Arttech Leo scanner. We captured a precise digital replica of the model's pose and hand detail based on the client's direction. The scan had remarkable accuracy, capturing details as small as 0.2 millimeters, which is, for those counting, that's roughly the thickness of 2.5 sheets of paper. The raw scan contained a great amount of detail, all the detail we desired, but it did have some noise and imperfections that required a little bit of cleanup. So we smoothed and refined the model carefully, preserving the anatomical accuracy. The mesh was repaired where needed to ensure the watertight geometry and eliminate any issues that would affect the printability. I will note here that the Massivit slicing software actually has a repair feature that goes a long way to making something printable. I've often just thrown the best model we could produce at it, and it's handled it often without any additional work. So that is a feature within the software that we've found helpful along the way. So once we cleaned up the 3D model, the overall pose was slightly modified based on the Marc Jacobs team notes. So the next step in prepping the model was to develop a strategic approach to split the hand into multiple optimized sections. We wanted to take advantage of the Massivit's dual print heads. The sections that we created allowed us to print 2 identical or even 2 unique parts simultaneously. And again, we were up against a pretty quick turnaround, so getting that printed that quickly was remarkable for us. We also planned the print orientation to minimize support structures, material waste, and post-processing time, post-print processing time. So here you can see the prints off of the Massivit. The sections we printed were using Massivit's quality mega setting, and that is a print resolution that equals 1 millimeter high by 2.85 millimeters wide. That particular setting was a great balance of speed while still capturing all the necessary details that we wanted. So for those prints that you're seeing in that slide, that total print time was around 14 hours. And again, some of that was able to be printed simultaneously, so that 14 hours was even reduced from there. Oops, sorry, went one slide too far. So for assembly, we carefully aligned and joined the printed pieces. We used a combination of adhesives, including, as Randy mentioned, you can use the Massivit gel itself as an adhesive. Along the seams or where it needed to be reinforced, we added fiberglass to the sculpture. We had to consider that the sculpture was installing in a very high touch photo moment setting. So in addition, we added a steel internal support structure that we then foam filled in for added rigidity. The process of scenic finishing started by filling in the layer lines with body filler, then sanding the entire model smooth before priming it. So you can see on the left side is we've filled, we've seamed at the knuckles there, and started adding some of that body filler. And that center slide is kind of rotating around the model to show what that looks like before paint. For the paint process on the right, we used a proprietary process to paint and texture the hand, resulting in a realistic scaled up version of Marc Jacobs' skin tone and texture. And by proprietary, I mean we just had really good scenic artists. We even recreated, you'll see on the next slide, his tattoo. Once that was done, the hand was ready to have its nails done, and what resulted was the finished product on the next slide. So yeah, this was the finished result with the nails applied and the steel plate to have it stable and in place. We actually, Corey, I think you mentioned that in this over 1 year period that this was installed, the only thing that's happened so far is that we've had a chipped nail on one location.
Correct. Yeah, and that was the Los Angeles location. So this wasn't in a protected environment or anything like that, which we were informed of prior to figuring out all of the additional finishing processes that we wanted to go through, like Yelmer mentioned, with the foam infill, the fiberglass coating. We take all of that into consideration when deciding to what extent we're going to add those elements. Based on the environment that this is going in. We were informed that this would be going in an unprotected, basically middle of a retail floor that, is prone to people potentially bumping into it. So frankly, the fact that only a small chip on one of the nails in one of the locations in a year has happened is pretty remarkable. But even any of the smooth surfaces, the paint finish, everything is maintained its existing fidelity. So, I think it's a testament to the durability of the material too, as it just comes out of the printer and is cured anyways. So we will move on to another case study. Thanks, Yelmer, for going into that extensive detail. I will say, sorry, real quick to go back to this. I think like 75% of our scenic painters in our New York shop have pretty extensive experience of working on Broadway and other theatrical productions. So in terms of recreating very specific effects like this and very specific finishing, that's kind of what I think Yelmer was referencing to with the sort of like proprietary finishes. It's not only in the mixing of the paint, but also just the history of work that our scenic painting team has on their books. So another project that was executed was for a Justin Bieber tour that was sponsored by the Honda Civic. It was a Honda Civic tour for the Future X, and these were intended to be the largest headphones ever created. One of the reasons, going back to Yelmer's exercise on the previous case study of sort of figuring out what the best method of executing these, it immediately was apparent to us that 3D printing these was a mandatory due to needing to integrate Bluetooth speakers into the actual headphones themselves. So you can kind of see a scale model here. Also, the ability to embed battery packs into there so that way they can be taken out on the street and engage with on this sort of social media campaign that you'll see a video of in a moment. But this is an example of all the different finishing and smoothing processes through various bondos. And then Yelmer, do you want to talk a little bit about the aerosol method in that bottom right?
Yeah, so this is SolarRes. Our West Coast team, because there's so many surfers in that shop, they actually kind of reappropriated this SolarRes, which has traditionally been a surfboard patch material, to use as a strengthening coating for our Massivit print. So, and considering they have so much sunshine over there, this is a product that you can spray on, has an epoxy as well as a kind of a chopped strand fiberglass component to it. You can spray this on the prints and then put it outside to UV cure, and then add significant amount of strengths with that product.
Yeah, we found immense success with that product, like Yelmer said, especially out in California. But when we're lucky enough to get hot sunny days in New York, we take advantage of it with trying to schedule our cure times in line with the weather in New York. This was a project done out of our Los Angeles shop. So you see a few videos, kind of time lapse of creating the case. It's actually upside down. Where the GoPro is mounted sort of shows it. The bed doesn't actually go up. Yeah, so that was the charger.
The world's largest headphones.
I want to hear on this song. Hey, you want to listen to a song we just dropped?
The world's largest headphones.
Yeah. Tell us what you think. Let's see if you're feeling it.
So you saw a lot of people that you want to have flexibility of who's handling it as well. So again, with the ability of Massivit, the fact that it comes out hollow, those pieces we did not infill with foam like we did with the Marc Jacobs hand. Multitude of reasons, both because we wanted to maintain as light a weight as possible for those headphones, obviously embed that speaker, allow access to the battery pack if it needed to get switched out throughout the day. So without being able to execute that piece in a hollow manner, it would have proven a little bit difficult and not have that type of flexibility for all of those factors. Next project. So this is one where the timeline, and a lot of the timelines with many of our projects are super tight. So when we were exploring acquiring Massivit printers, the speed was certainly, among other things, was certainly a really important piece of this to us. So this project, from taking it in to delivering it, was a 2.5 week process. And we executed 2 of these 24-foot tall sculptural totems. And you'll see this is for the launch of Travis Scott's last album, Utopia. This is showing the print of just one of those totem heads. And then various scenic finishing. It was Some of the diamond gel was used as the binding agent to reinforce and connect some of the pieces on the head. Various other types of bondos, and I think even some of the Solarez was used as well. So you see it off the printer. You can kind of see a detailed photo, kind of where my cursor is over, of it wanting to look like this sort of carved stone. So our Scenic teams kind of were able to, because of the speed of just establishing that already super detailed shape of each of the heads, it gave them the time that they needed to achieve that sort of a finish to it. And you can see some finished iterations of it. This one was actually on Nike's campus in Portland. And then the one on the right was actually in Utopia, Texas. So very much middle of nowhere. It was also quite the engineering feat too, because this needed to have 24-foot tall truss structure that is clad, that also has these custom platforms built for all the speakers, needed to take into consideration the weight and the placement of the speakers, obviously the ballasting on the G blocks on the bottom of the tower itself. So really the ability to have the speed of Massivit was really the only way for us to even entertain this project. And going a step further, having machines in both New York and Los Angeles, not only because of the delivery locations, but just because of the quantity requested for the overall project, was really the only way that we were successfully able to execute this project. That middle image shows a couple of additional totem heads that were taken off of these larger totems that then went out on tour, out on Travis Scott's tour. And then this is kind of one of the main projects that sort of kicked off a lot of real success that we had with the printer. Imagine a lot of the people, a lot of the attendees here on this call work in fields that relate to IP and characters and understanding the immense importance with accuracy of the recreation of those characters. So we have been working directly with Netflix for many years now. In this instance, this was their kind of first foray into brick and mortar across multiple IP, actually, or multiple title, I should say. So this was at the Grove in Los Angeles. So these are three of the main featured characters: Vecna from Stranger Things, a Demogorgon, and then the Squid Games doll as well, all of which were printed. So you can see the two pieces here of Vecna specifically, just harking back on speed, right? We actually had time on this project, but the level of detail and needed specifically for this character on the paint side of things, we were able to basically print this entire section, so basically from clavicle down, in 18 hours. And then the head, neck, and shoulder area, that was an 8-hour print time. So in 24 hours, you can just see the amount of detail that is captured on this piece to allow our paint teams the time to capture the needed detail to recreate that character to an exact replica. And then you can kind of see sort of after the initial smoothing out process of the Squid Games doll here, it then went into paint as well. So this video is of the Squid Games doll, the body, which I believe I saw earlier as well in Randy's video too. But that piece too, you have the entire Squid Games body, or yeah, the entire Squid Games doll body in a day. And as Yelmer mentioned earlier too, this machine can successfully operate unattended. So we can be operating this overnight. No one has to be there. We can obviously remote in to check on the status of things, mounting GoPros or other small video capturing devices, and we can log into that and see in real time as well. So this just goes into a little bit more detail. These are, again, fresh off the printer. You can see the level of detail that's already captured in both of these parts. More of the Squid Games doll. And again, because we were able to print hollow, it was a much more successful execution in terms of integrating the lit eyeballs in this. These two, we did the foam infill, the steel armature to just create additional support. It's in a retail space. This one is also around the holiday. It was a pop-up. It was heavily publicized. We knew that there would be a whole lot of bodies going in and out. The only thing that we did have to go in and repair was we had to recreate one of the hands on the Squid Games doll. Went in, looked at the surveillance footage. It was actually a child that just decided to like hang on it. So there's only so much you can do on those certain instances. But again, like because we were notified immediately, we're able to reprint, isolate that section of the file, reprint it very, very rapidly to where it was only like, I think a 30-hour in total from when we were notified to when we were able to go back on site and repair it. Yeah, so that kind of culminates a lot of the projects that we've just had immense amount of success with, having both Massivit machines across both coasts. I think, we started using it and identifying its importance on the recreation of IP, being lucky enough to have the actual files and appropriate models delivered to us to recreate them accordingly. And our paint and scenic teams, we have folks in Los Angeles that have history in Disney's scenic departments, all the way to what I mentioned in New York of many of our scenic finishers and painters having extensive history on Broadway. So I think recreating IP, but also really any specialty finish, having the speed that Massivit affords us allows their skills to really shine. And to us, from the scenic perspective, is of utmost importance. That I don't think that executing these with a Kuka arm and utilizing foam we would never be able to be successful with a lot of these projects as we were. So I'll hand it back over to Randy to talk about a couple of upcoming events that they're going to be at, and then I believe Will will moderate the Q&A. So thank you everyone for the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And thank you, Yelmer, for the detailed insight as well into the process. So we certainly appreciate it. As Corey mentioned, we've got a few different things going on. So you've learned about Massivit, you've learned about the process, but now's an opportunity to actually see it in action. So there are 3 events coming up. The next one is actually next week in Miami at a company called Art and Sculpture. They're one of our clients in Miami, where you'll actually see the Massivit live in action running. That is September 17th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And we can certainly provide contact information so you can get registered for that event. Additionally, October 22nd through 24th, if you plan to attend, or maybe this is a good reason to attend, Printing United Expo, also in Florida. We will be exhibiting at Printing United, that expo, and as well at IAAPA, the annual IAAPA show that is also in Florida, and that is November 18th through the 21st. So all 3 of those events will have live printing being shown with Massivit 3000 printers. So we invite you to take a look, and you can visit our website for contact information for any of these events as well. And with that, Corey and Yelmer, I think, and actually we'll turn it over to Will at this point, I think, for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy. And of course, to Corey and Yelmer for this awesome presentation. Certainly a fascinating look into your partnership that I feel is very applicable to our audience here at IAAPA. So thanks for taking the time. We did, as expected, get a number of questions throughout your presentation. The first of which I think I'm going to direct here to Corey and Yelmer based on what we saw in the presentation. So first up, we have a question here. pertaining to the Marc Jacobs hand. Was the seam merged with fiberglass or the whole hand, or was it sanded smooth and then hit with a primer?
Elmer?
Yeah, so it was, in this case, it was just primarily the seams that were hit with fiberglass. And then it went to the layers being filled with body filler, sanded down, and then hit with a primer. So we don't necessarily have to do fiberglass over the entire structure. Foam goes a long way into providing rigidity. I think just want to shout out Smooth On, which I know had a booth the last time I was down in IAAPA. So they provide a really nice product which adds like a higher density foam that gives it some strength. So it depends on the use case. If you need full fiberglass, it's possible, but it's not always necessary.
Awesome. And this question only came through once, but I think a few people are probably wondering, how did you attach the nails?
The nails were bolted through. We didn't have images of that part of the process, but they were bolted through the steel armature. So that's what kind of gave it some strength. And it was using I think 1/4 inch or 3/8 acrylic for the acrylic nails. So with it being bolted in a few places around the nail bed, that's what gave it its sort of its strength and allowed it to last as long as it has.
Cool. Question from Oliver for the Pink Sparrow team as well. Have you until now only done props or also whole shop walls, shelf installations, excuse me? Thinking of theme parks, it would be really interesting to create an immersive cave or forest, such as a 360-degree design.
Yeah, I can answer that. Not necessarily a cave or a forest. We have explored and we have executed samples, specifically like within the camp stores where we've gone through sampling exercises of a few like underwater cave sets that they wanted to do with it. It didn't really come to fruition in terms of a finished project. We did recently use it in LA in a retail space for a women's wear line called Opali, where we had these sort of very compound curve archways that took on a pretty unique shape or I think it was like 3/4 of the way up into the arch, where it had an additional sort of design feature. That store just opened last month, so we haven't been able to capture a lot of good photography of it there. But in that sense, we have utilized it. But yeah, to your point, the sort of cave detail, we've tested a lot with that to sort of dial in line thickness, wall thickness, what could work, knowing that there are pieces that are going to need to be supported additionally overhead. So like depending on the length and the width of it, the weight load it's a great tool to have. With our engineering team really appreciates being able to utilize it in this level of detail.
Awesome. Turning our attention to the Travis Scott project, Cole asks, how were these heads mounted? And what was the hardware attachment to the diamond gel like?
For those, we also used foam, fiberglass, and epoxy to create sort of a plate. I think in that case we were using like a exterior rated plywood for sort of the flat elements that would register against the truss.
Yeah.
And then and then we bolted through that sheet good material.
And then for the traveling version of the heads too, those didn't have as extensive a foam fill that weren't attached to the truss because of the rigging detail that was shared to us ahead of time, the ones that were going out on tour. So we actually created custom crates, and those heads were, we were able to identify some areas that we were able to print out hollow points and run within these crates, basically just steel Schedule 40, 2 pipes. So that way the heads essentially were floating in the crate during transit. So that way, we didn't have to just rely on a ton of packing material and foam lined cases and crates. So yeah, there are multiple methods of attaching for both iterations within that project.
And Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but these all had to get an engineer's stamp.
Completely. Yeah.
And I think they were, particularly for this, were under pretty intense scrutiny. So it was high stakes, and we were confident in the Massivit prints and our methods of putting it all together.
Awesome. Cole also asks if other printers were leveraged in combination with the Massivit to capture some of the detail without having to do a resculpt. He says, I would imagine the Vecna head and face would rather need a lot of touch up.
In that specific instance, it wasn't. And in the close up, I think with Vecna itself, like it's kind of that sort of, glorified burn victim on steroids where like it has a lot of really, really crazy sort of craters within the shape that Massivit can capture. We have integrated, it's not a case study in here, but in that Netflix, the Grove space for the Bridgerton space, we recreated a large Eiffel Tower. And as you get to the top of the Eiffel Tower, when you have all the cross beaming and it becomes super, super fine and very small, we did utilize resin printers for that, but through the seaming techniques. And then we did like the main body with Massivit, both because of size and because of the strength that it affords us during the curing process. So there are instances where we introduce resin printers as well, but anything at scale, especially size and the typical timelines that we operate under, we're going to rely mostly and exclusively on the Massivit printers. But with the Vecna character, and we've done several iterations of that. We did the one in the Grove, and then we also did the one for the Stranger Things store that was in Las Vegas for, I think it was a little over a year. Those were exclusively Massivit prints.
Excellent. It was mentioned that the models for Netflix could not have been achieved with foam in that case. Is that because of time constraints, or the hard coding process and finishing would be more intensive than the surface finish from printing?
I think, Yelmer, if you want to talk about like the fine details, but I can kind of allude to the fine details of the finishing. It was important for us to allow our paint and scenic finishing team the time to recreate it as accurately as possible, which it was conveyed to us by the Netflix team that the paint finish and the paint detail was really, really, really important to them. So having the ability of the speed that the Massivit affords us to be able to capture the shape still in detail and be able to hand it over to them to give them the time they need. I think it could have been done with foam, but I think when it's a shape that has as many sort of organic, ornate details like that all kind of live together, it would have been much more difficult to sort of cleanly seam them together and make it look how it did in the end in our iteration. But Yelmer, I'll kind of lean on you on anything else you want to chime in on that.
Yeah, so it's not that it couldn't be done with foam. It's just that it was more advantageous for us to do it using the Massivit. There's always a trade-off there. I think again, like running the machine unattended is a huge advantage. I've worked with 5-axis and experienced robot arms for foam milling, and running those unattended, in my opinion, isn't the safest, especially when you consider machine collisions, losing the piece you spent 17 hours milling. So yeah, there's a trade-off. So I think it's not that it can't be done. It's that for us, we see the advantages of using the Massivit for all those reasons kind of we explained. But speed is a big one, and IP accuracy is another one.
Awesome. This question I think any of you could speak to, but I'll kick it over to Randy. What are the most promising developments in large-scale 3D printing that will allow us to create highly interactive, hands-on exhibits that are not only sustainable, but also easily reconfigurable and updatable? Peter states, we want to avoid creating permanent structures that become obsolete and instead design for an evolving conservation message.
Sure. So I think I'll lean on Pink Sparrow a little bit on this too, but when I think about that, there's a couple things that we can help address with that. One is Massivit is constantly developing new materials. So stronger materials, more robust materials, different materials to fit the industries. So that is one thing where when you're looking at something that's going to be a structure outdoors, a stronger material, certainly, for instance, a more impact resistant material like our Diamond Gel 400 is a good use for that. With respect to changeability, because number one, we print so fast, it's easy to make those kinds of iterations and changes when necessary. Ideally in a large format item that's a sculpted piece, what have you, that maybe you want the design to change, even not necessarily with rigid structure, you can still, using software, create connection points for different items, and then piece those items together with connection points so they're interchangeable at that point, if that answers that question. Corey, I don't know if you have an additional insight on that or not.
No, not beyond kind of what you said, to be honest.
Perfect. Great question, though.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. Marcel asks, what is the fire resistance or certification of the gels?
So with respect to the diamond gels themselves, there's not a UL list on the diamond gels. So in general, what tends to happen is the combination of the elements that are used for finishing is what creates that. Corey, you probably do have more experience with regard to your specific installations for that. I will suggest, though, we do have with our Massivit cast in motion series, with the Massivit 10,000 series, we do have a fire retardant and smoke retardant material called SIM 84. It's actually the highest level of certification that can be achieved. It's ASTM E84 compliant, which allows for smoke and flame. So for instance, a company like Disney might require that. And so that's a material that's specifically developed for fire and flame and smoke, where you don't want to rely on an external material, if that makes sense.
Excellent. We have time for a couple more questions here. So it was mentioned that you can bind parts together using the diamond gel and a UV light. Are the printed parts sensitive to becoming over-cured or brittle easily if they're also made of UV cured gel?
So there is because they are UV cured, there is a condition where if the parts were sitting outside permanently, then they're going to continue to cure. And as Corey mentioned, their LA facility, oftentimes they'll spray them with solar res and then they'll let them sit outside to continue to cure. But by and large, on an outdoor exhibit, an outdoor structure, you will apply a UV uh, inhibitor to the outer surface as well.
Excellent. Pertaining to the hand project that was highlighted in your first case study, why did you have to separate parts to the hand as opposed to printing all one part?
Yeah, so the hand would be technically printable in one part. It would have fit the print bed, but the speed of using two of the print heads at the same time kind of offset the speed of maybe printing the whole thing at once. It also allowed us to use less supports and gave us more flexibility with the orientation of the prints. So in short, it could have been printed in one piece, but it was more advantageous for us to print it in several pieces.
Was certainly a client that even after things were being printed, and oftentimes in the fashion and luxury businesses, all decisions are changed, designs are changed, and recreating the actual namesake designer's hand and the process just leading up to sort of going to print. We're like, you know what? Maybe we give ourselves as the maximum flexibility to be able to still adjust it slightly even after it comes off the printer. So that wasn't obviously like going into it the main reason, but having that ability certainly helped.
It also gave us some flexibility in how we would add the steel armature, again, because we knew that this was going to be super high touch.
Yeah.
Breaking the splitting apart the model as illustrated just gave us more opportunity to get into those hollow spaces and make sure that armature was reaching all the areas of the hand that we needed it to.
Excellent. One final question here, and I'm sure this is contingent on sort of state, local regulations or wherever you may be in the world. How are printed supports or uncured diamond gel safely disposed of? Is it possible to recycle or reuse cured diamond gel?
So Corey, I'm not sure if you want to answer that question from what Pink Sparrow does in-house. I know in general, with respect to removal of material, for instance, the supports, oftentimes companies will grind that up and they'll donate that material as filler. Because of the curing process, it's not like another type of material that could be melted down and remanufactured. So oftentimes it's ground up in that case. Corey, I'm not sure if you have additional insight for that.
No, I mean, we kind of have always wanted to get your team's point of view and guidance on that as well. And that's kind of been the directive of how we've gone about things. Yelmer, do you want to chime in on some of the specifics?
Yeah, I mean, we use some the things we're creating are so large, so using it as fill has been one of the processes that we've used. So we'll cure the supports as well as the print, and then the supports can be put in broken apart. We don't grind them, but we'll break them apart and add them in with the foam, which adds a little bit of strength.
Awesome. Well, that's about our time for this afternoon's webinar. So I just wanted to say thank you again to Randy, Corey, and Yelmer for this awesome presentation. It's great to see your partnership and certainly very educational as well for this audience in terms of the opportunity to ask you all these great questions. Folks, as a reminder, IAAPA members and IAAPA certified members will have the opportunity here to throw this towards your recertification. You'll achieve 1 continuing education unit. And again, if you liked this and you'd like to watch it over, it will be available on our webinar archive over at IAAPA.org, which will be linked to you in a follow-up email tomorrow. If you're interested in other events like this online, go ahead and check out our events calendar over at IAAPA.org. And thanks again for your participation and for being with us today.
And one last
Have a
thing,
great day.
I have, if any of you are interested in seeing the machines either in action or just our shops in general, if you're in the New York or Los Angeles area, my email is on one of the intro slides. Feel free to reach out and I'm happy to arrange a visit. We have very much an open door policy. So
Thank you,
you.
Corey. Randy, Yelmer, anything else?
No, just thank you guys all for your time. And we really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.